Ordinarily, we don't become interested in a health topic until we get a diagnosis or someone we know has been diagnosed. So, what do? We head over to Dr. Google or Mr. AI and gather all the information we feel necessary, pick out what is relevant to the situation or the diagnosis at hand, form an opinion, and either start implementing what feels right. We don't want to feel too uncomfortable with changes, or we may just go to our healthcare provider to help with the condition, and so on. So, if you've been following me for a while and listened to my story in episode 1 to hear how my journey started with learning about nutrition and cognitive prevention and not waiting for a diagnosis, you have an idea of where I am coming from. Well, this episode is no different, so stay tuned to this episode and let me tell you more. I was walking with a friend the other day, and she asked me, what do I think causes dementia or Alzheimer's? So I took a moment to think about it before I replied to her. Now, these are just my thoughts from reading and researching. Dementia has many contributing factors. However, scientists are looking for a root cause so a pill can be manufactured. At the basis, though, it is protein failing to function as usual. Neurons become damaged. It can be a combination of genetics, lifestyle, environment, an accident, such as a concussion, that can affect the brain's ability to fire up. So, if in a nutshell, I could say what causes dementia? Poor nutrition, toxins, pollutants, inflammation of the brain, insulin resistance of the brain, declining hormones, sedentary lifestyle, social isolation, stress, insufficient sleep, like sleep apnea, imbalance of microbiome in the gut, which is referred to as the second brain. Wait a minute, that's a lot of contributing factors. How do we even begin to address it? So let me repeat this for you one more time, and you see where you fit in and what's going on for you. So, poor nutrition, toxins, pollutants, mold, inflammation, insulin resistance, declining hormones, sedentary lifestyle, social isolation, stress, insufficient sleep, like sleep apnea, imbalance of microbiome in the gut, which is referred to as a second brain. Now, as I asked you, where do you even start and where do you see yourself in this? Now, if you are concerned or even a little bit curious, start with what is in front of you at the moment. Now, if you had a chance to listen to episode 10, of course, after this episode, go back and have a listen. I speak about doing a little more of what is good for you and doing a little less of what is not serving you. And that's a great place to start. Don't make it complicated. So let's start with movement. We can all stretch, swing our arms, go for a walk, perhaps some weight resistant exercises. The key is doing it every day without fail, no excuses. It has to become a routine, a must do. Movement helps the brain create new neural pathways, such as brain derived neurotrophic factors, so BDNF for short. Now, I used to think, hey, I move a lot throughout the day. When my kids were growing up, my job at the time, I was on my feet a lot. I'd go home, cook dinner, clean dishes, tidy up, take them to their sporting events. I didn't really sit down. So I equated that to movement. However, I never stretched my muscles. I didn't take a moment to relax and sit and breathe, allowing oxygen to my brain. It was always do, do, do. So maybe you see yourself in that scenario. As a nutritionist, the quality of food is my concern. Over the course of a week, I will hear people tell me how well they eat, yet I feel there's always room for improvement. Good, better, best. I tell them you can always do better to your good and you can always do best to your better. If you're struggling with cognitive decline, brain fog, I hesitate to say this, and I'll tell you why in a minute. You really want to reduce your refined carbohydrates and adopt a ketogenesis diet. Now, why I hesitate to say that is because you will hear me say, change your diet. And you may start implementing a diet change, and it's not really working the way you wanted it to, or it's really hard because they're having one meal and you're having a different meal, and you're not getting the results you'd hope for quick enough. So you get frustrated and say, it doesn't work. I'm not doing it. So I want you to remember there are many facets to cognitive decline. Diet is just one aspect. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to touch on all these points I mentioned. I have an online program which I run. I call it the Memory Method Program, and that is more in depth and it's more one on one. And we cater to what your needs are at the moment, and then we want to build on that. So you can check that out in my show notes if you're interested, if you're curious, have a look there. But for now, I want to touch on two very important points is insulin resistance and inflammation, which the majority of us are all suffering with. So let's start with insulin resistance. So over your lifetime, you've eaten a moderate to high glucose diet where insulin receptor cell sites have burnt out, trying to keep the body's blood sugar levels in check. Now, as you age, the brain becomes less efficient at utilizing the glucose and the insulin. So, when the body struggles to utilize that insulin properly, insulin accumulates in the body with nowhere to go. And what happens? It's called glycation. So, glycation is kind of the erosion of a cell's function. Now, while the pancreas is primarily responsible for insulin production, research shows that the brain can also produce small amounts of insulin in certain regions. Although the majority of brain insulin is thought to come from the bloodstream by crossing the blood-brain barrier, this means the brain does make its own insulin to a limited extent, but not in the same quantities as the pancreas. Now let's talk about inflammation. You know these aches and pains we experience, and we all experience them. Let me bring it back to nutrition. So, on an empty stomach, your size of your stomach is probably about the size of your fist. And the stomach sits kind of behind your heart, around your heart area. We eat a big meal, our stomach expands, bloats up like a balloon. The stomach's a muscle. And we all know what happens when we push a muscle too hard, it strains. So think of your stomach in the same way. It strains to digest, it strains to hold all that food, causing inflammation. If the stomach wall is strained, we may experience leaky gut. It can only strain so much. And then, unwanted proteins start getting into the bloodstream, and that's what's causing inflammation in the body. Now, we know inflammation in the body is protective and it's a mechanism for healing. So, if you hurt yourself, you fall and you hurt your wrist, all the blood vessels will go there to try to repair that. And, it'll be swollen, it'll be hot, it'll be red, but that's your body's protective mechanism. But the concern is when it is chronic and all the time trying to bring that inflammation down. Inflammation does not necessarily cause the problem, but it's our body, as I said, protective mechanism. And if the body is constantly trying to bring that inflammation down, again, it burns out. Let me refer back to another episode, and that's episode 2, where I speak on liver health. Now, when you're done with this episode, you can go back and listen to that one. And I explain how the liver gets rid of unwanted toxins, proteins, the same with the brain does a dump when we're in that deep sleep. When we are getting a good night's sleep, that's when the body can repair itself, bring down some of that inflammation. Now, I go back to nutrition. When we are eating nutrient dense foods that nourish our body, that will bring down some of that inflammation and repair joints, brain health, not eating all the time, allowing the body rest from digestion, then you're on the right track. So, what's nutrient dense food? Everything perimeter in your grocery store or your farmer's market. Now, these are just simple analogies of inflammation, of insulin resistance. There's so much more to it, but just to get you thinking, how can you make some changes? And as I said, I run a program called the Memory Method Program. It's not for everyone, it is work, and it is getting you to change up some lifestyle habits to create some healthy lifestyle habits. If you're interested in that, as I said, check out the show notes. The details are all there. Now, I said I would talk more about two items, and I wanted to address, but I really want to address one more, and that is isolation. And we may not think of that at at a younger age because we see friends, our family, our moms, our dads, our siblings, but this may not affect the older generation like the baby boomers, but it will affect the millennials and subsequent generations after this. And it's called AI. Talking to your phone, and it answers you. Ask me anything, Gemini. Even as I'm writing this piece, and I smile, but just thinking of scenarios, but even as I'm writing this piece, AI wants to tell me what I should be writing and what I should be talking about and what I should be telling you. So my point is, we think we are engaging because AI is replying to our requests, but nothing, and I mean nothing replaces a human hug, a human touch, a human interaction of conversation, challenging our thought patterns, being heard, and being able to listen to others' point of view. Now, I go back to my walk with my friend, our conversation, the emotions that are created by engaging with another human, creating new neural pathways because of this engagement, oxygen to the brain because we're out walking. So, I've given you a list of many different things that I think affect our brain health. So, what can you start today? What can you implement today? Don't wait till tomorrow. Create those lifestyle habits and engage the brain. And again, check out the show notes for more helpful ideas and tips to stay focused. And if you are concerned for yourself or a loved one, please check out my Memory Method program, course, if you will, which is a 12-week support program that is more in depth and addresses all of these points I mentioned, such as energy, eliminating brain fog, balancing hormones, improving sleep patterns, proper nutrition. I address it all. But most importantly, it addresses cognitive help to keep you mentally sharp. One caveat though, I just want to say sorry, guys, but the course is only for women. We are unique. If you look at the stats, out of 3 dementia patients, 2 are women. And women tend to be the main caregivers to looking after those who have dementia. So that's what I have for you today. I hope it's helpful. Please mention in the comment if there's something you're struggling with and if this resonated with you and this was helpful for you, I really would love to hear from you. And please, you know, put your comments and love to hear from you.